This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so now we're going to address the objective. So by the end of this lesson, I hope you guys are able to describe and use questioning techniques, and you're able to list the purpose and the qualities of a good question and different formats and when to use the different question techniques. So it's very important because it helps the instructor to determine the cadet's level of comprehension of the material, to create interest in the lesson, and to confirm the cadet's comprehension of the new material, typically at the end of a teaching point, as you guys always see. And proper questioning techniques will help instructors ask questions properly to accomplish goals and to develop confidence in their instructional abilities. All right, so teaching point 1 is describe the purposes of questioning. So the purposes of questioning, so questions that are carefully developed and incorporated into a lesson plan may improve learning. So in fact, instructors that use questions have such an impact on learning that it can be considered an indicator of their overall effectiveness. So instructors may improve their questioning technique by carefully planning what questions to ask, when, and how to use them so as to improve their instructional ability. So questions can be posed throughout a lesson to determine the cadet's level of comprehension, as we mentioned before. Create and maintain interest by keeping the cadets mentally alert by reminding them what was taught previously, and to guide and provoke thinking by carefully selecting questions and following answers with other questions as a lesson progresses. Questions help confirm learning, and especially for knowledge lessons. So by asking questions at the end of each teaching point, you're confirming that they understand, and it's an opportunity for the cadets that you're instructing to ask questions as well and to clarify anything that they are confused with for the material. So, confirmation of teaching point 1. In the chat, you can turn on your mic or anything, but why is questioning such an important aspect of instruction or when you're instructing?
It can improve someone's learning and their comprehension of what the instructor said.
Exactly. Yes, perfect answer. It helps the instructor to improve as a instructor, and it helps ensure that the cadets know and comprehend what was taught. Yeah, perfect answer. So question number 2, how can instructors improve their questioning technique? Which I kind of covered.
By asking questions.
Yes, for sure. Instructors improve their ability to question by actually going through the process, planning their questions, and ensuring that their questions are direct, they are clear, and that they address the material. Yeah. And question number 3, what are 4 purposes of questioning?
So they can understand what they're being asked or what they're learning or what their comprehension is.
Yes, exactly. Does anyone have anything else to add to Sharp's answer? Yeah, so exactly, Sharp. So, like you said, it's to help the cadets improve and to help reassure that they understand the material, create, maintain interest, and guide provoke learning, and to confirm the cadets' learning as well, and ensuring that they understand the material. So, teaching point 2 is describe the qualities of a good question. So, qualities of a good question. So, questions used during a lesson should be written out ahead of time. So, instructors who consistently pay attention to writing good quality questions will improve their instruction and learn to instinctively phrase good questions when the situation demands it during a lesson. So it's important to note that often the cadets who are being instructed ask questions for clarification, and that's essentially what we do all the time. So if you don't understand something, or if you're given a task and you aren't sure what to do, essentially you want to always ask questions. And its effective instructors create a classroom atmosphere that encourages cadets to ask questions which are relevant to the lesson. And it's important to note that you want the questions to be relevant to the lesson, because often a lot of questions can lead to bunny trails and extend the lesson away from the point of the lesson as well. So the exact wording of a question is determined by its purpose and the situation in which it is asked. So while the wording may vary, all questions should be brief, complete, and easily understood, stated clearly using simple language or language that you already mentioned within your lesson, a challenge to cadets to apply their knowledge, and not so difficult that only a few cadets can answer. And it must be relevant to the lesson by reinforcing and supporting the teaching points. So that already brings us into confirmation of teaching point number 2. Why should questions be written out ahead of time? So when you're an instructor, which you guys soon will be, why is it important to write questions ahead of time? Imagine you're an instructor and you came prepared for questions and unprepared. What would be the difference between the two? If you're an instructor that didn't plan out their confirmation teaching point questions versus a um, versus yourself who came prepared, what's the difference between the two? How would that affect the audience? Okay, so essentially you want to write out questions ahead because you want better quality answers, and you want to be able to essentially your questions are a summary of what was taught as well. So that's important to implement simple yet specific and detailed language, but to a point where it's understandable for cadets as well. So question number 2, how can instructors learn to ask better quality questions when instructing? All right, we'll just move on. So to answer question number 2, oh, sorry, did someone want to say something? So to answer question number 2, a good way that is very applicable is when a senior is evaluating your teaching skills. They can teach you and they can give you feedback on how to improve your ability to ask questions. They can help you modify your teaching methods, and that's an important way to develop better question making skills, right? So question number 3, 5 qualities of good questions. Can someone put it in the chat, or they can turn on their mics? What are some qualities of a good question?
You were frozen for the whole time you were doing teaching point 2, so I had no idea what was happening. And then you unfroze when you were asking your questions, so I was really confused.
Oh, was I frozen for everyone else too? I can go back really quickly because it's not too many slides, but so we just covered the qualities of good questions and what it means, and we'll cover the third question, which is different qualities of good questions. So questions used should be written ahead of time, and they are instructors who consistently pay attention to writing good quality questions, improve their instruction, and learn to instinctively phrase good questions. When the situation demands it during a lesson. So when cadets are being instructed, ask questions for clarification. So often cadets always ask questions if they are confused with anything. And in fact, effective instructors create a classroom atmosphere that encourages cadets to ask questions. So as an instructor, you want to create an environment where the cadets feel comfortable speaking out. They feel comfortable with sharing their ideas and answering questions. And then these are the qualities of good questions. So they're brief, they complete, and they're easily understood. They're stated clearly using simple languages, and they, at the same time, challenge the cadets to apply their knowledge. So it's not difficult. So you don't want your questions to be difficult, and you want the question to be relevant to the lesson by reinforcing and supporting the teaching points. So like I mentioned before, it is your questions essentially are summaries of your teaching points and your material from before. So then these are the questions that we covered, and we're going to move on to teaching point number 3, which is describe the different types of questions. All right, so all questions may be categorized as either participatory or evaluative. So participatory questions are used during a lesson to create and maintain interest and to keep cadets mentally alert. So it's focused on participation and wanting the cadets' ideas and inputs, and also listening to them, right? Not just asking for them, but giving them confirmation that yes, awesome answer type of thing. So on the contrary, evaluative questions are used at the beginning of the lesson to determine retention of previously taught material, or at the end of the teaching point or lessons to confirm comprehension of new material. So now we're going to break it down into different questions that you can use. So Lead-off questions are questions that are used to begin a lecture or start a discussion. So this type of question does not necessarily require a verbal or written response and is designed to get the cadets thinking about the topic of the lesson or the issue being discussed. So an example to start off a lecture or to start off a discussion is, what does being a good cadet mean to you? So next, a follow-up question. So follow-up questions are used to further stimulate the cadets' thinking about the topic of the lesson or point of discussion. So as the name follows, as the name suggests, they are supplementary questions related to the initial lead-off question and or are questions which are phrased on the spot to probe an answer to previous question or extend a point of discussion. So an example is, identify an item which mentioned in question 1 that can be considered both a good and bad cadet quality. So essentially, it's just branching off of a lead-off question as well. So next you have the overhead questions. So overhead that are asked to the whole group without indicating who it is to reply. So there will be several answers to this type of question, and everyone should be given a chance to respond. So essentially, this is for everyone in the group. It is generalized for people to answer and not just one specific person. So an example of this is, identify one factor that can determine if a cadet quality is good or bad. On the other hand, direct questions. So questions that are opposite of overhead questions because someone is directed to answer. So essentially, this is sometimes when an instructor points out a cadet and asks them directly, can you answer this question, cadet blank, or with their rank and last name. So these questions can be used to draw in those who are reluctant to take part in discussions, to prompt cadets who are inattentive, or to get a discussion back on track. Important, especially if you have a quiet classroom, no one is participating. Often you can pick and choose on a cadet to answer the question to help encourage the cadets to answer. So the last example of questions, or the types of questions, are the reversed or relay questions. So questions are used to keep the discussion in the hands of the cadets, and instead of answering a question posed by a cadet, the instructor can reverse the question and return it to the person who asked it. So essentially, if a cadet asks you a question, you would just ask a question back to them. So it is very important to never use reverse or relay type of question as an escape mechanism for questions you cannot answer. Always admit that you don't know the answer and follow up later, rather than use reverse and relay. So an example of this is, if a cadet walks up to you, or if someone walks up to you and asks you a question, don't make up an answer. Tell them, oh, I will do more research and I will get back to you, or I will contact or connect with the officers to get more information, and then I'll let you know. Never make up answers, and do not give them false information, even though if you might assume or if you have an idea. You want to be confident in your answers, and by getting confidence, you can get it from officers, or you can do more research. So this leads us to the confirmation of teaching point 3. So question 1, which type of question does not necessarily require a response? So I can go back to the slides if you guys need. So we have lead-off questions, follow-up questions. So we have overhead, direct, or the reverse and reply. So which questions do not require a response? Flight Corporal Snow, yes, rhetorical. Very good. So specifically, which one that we discussed, which one that we discussed is the answer? So we have lead off, follow up, we have overhead, direct, or the reverse or relay.
The reverse question.
That could be a possibility, but when you do a reverse or relay, you are essentially, when a cadet asks you a question, right? If a cadet asks you a question, you as the instructor are asking the question back to the specific cadet. So do you think that it requires a response? That stimulates a response, right? Because the instructor is asking the specific cadet another question. So yes, love the thought process of that, but it is actually a lead-off question. So it's not necessarily, so a lead-off question does not necessarily require a response because it's often a general question to start off a discussion. So it's not required by every cadet to answer that prompt. So we're going to move on to question number 2, which is which type of question can be used to encourage cadets to take part in a discussion? So which of the 5 questioning methods encourage the cadets to discuss the material? So we have a 50-50 guess. It is somewhere on this page. Do you guys think it's overhead questions or do you guys think it's direct questions? The definitions are right here. Which do you think encourage the cadets more to participate in discussions?
A direct question.
Exactly. Thank you, Flight Corporal Sharp. It is direct questions because especially this is really important, especially when cadets aren't attentive, if they lack interest and such, you can ask the questions to continue the discussion within the class. And the last question, what is one thing to avoid when using reverse and relay questions? I can go back to the slide. It is on the slide here. It says, do not use reverse or relay as an escape mechanism. All right, we're gonna go through that. And we're gonna go through the end of lesson confirmation. So we're going to go through these questions just to help our understanding of what was taught in this lesson. So what are the 4 purposes for asking questions? If you have any ideas, you can put in the chat. I'm just going to go through them because we we went through these questions beforehand, and this is just a quick summary. So it's to determine comprehension of the material that was taught, is to guide and maintain interest, and is to help provoke thinking, and it's to confirm learning of new material. Question number 2, we can list qualities of good questions, and essentially you need to be reminded that they are complete, they need to be simple, they need to be clear, although you need to keep in mind that it should be challenging as well and not too difficult. Question number 3, list 2 types of questions most commonly recognized. So most instructors often use lead-off questions and then follow-up questions. And the very last questions, the 5 parts of the question posing sequence. The question posing sequence is to pose, to pause, point, ponder, and praise. And praise is especially a very important one, to recognize the cadets' participation and as an opportunity to thank and appreciate their participation. So this concludes my lesson of EOM 309.04, and I am still Warrant Officer First Class Yam, and this was describe questioning technique. So I hope you guys were able to have an idea, so when you guys are going into being instructors for the younger levels, you guys can be reminded of this lesson and the framework of good questions and how to phrase them.
Awesome. Fantastic lesson, Warrant Officer. Yeah. All right. So now we're just going to take a 10-minute break before I go into my lesson. So take a drink of water, grab up a snack, and then we'll come back here at 7:10 to wrap up the second period.
Flight Corporal Snow, did you do your fitness test on the first day of gym? If you're there.
Okie dokie. I have 7:10 on my clock, so just gonna get started. Just share my screen here. It's PowerPoint applications. Yeah, also a F1 fan myself too. All right. Can everybody see my screen? Just to put a yes in the chat or unmute yourself to say yeah. Perfect. Let's see, let's get all this stuff out of the way. How do I minimize this? Okay. So I'm Officer Cadet Amoa. I know you guys don't normally see me around in your classroom because I am the level 4 officer, but since Captain Larrabee is teaching level 4 today, I'm in the schedule for you guys today for one lesson. All right, so today I'll be teaching C309.04, which is identify formations for drill instruction. And let's get into it. All right, so a lot of you guys might ask why learn about drill formations. Obviously right now, with seem very likely that we'll be doing drill in the near foreseeable future for now, right? So you guys might wonder why we're doing this lesson, but the answer why is here, right? So we learn about drill formations, right, to provide cadets with the ability to choose a formation that is best suited for their drill lesson, right? So normally this choice of formation, it gives good sight lines. You choose a good formation that will give proper sight lines for the cadets to see the instructor, which is very important, right? If your cadets can't see how you're demonstrating a particular drill movement, they won't be able to perform it correctly. So this is at the foundation of a drill lesson. A good formation to teach a drill concept is important to maintain those sight lines. Also helps to maintain organization for the lesson, right? Obviously, if you're in a gaggle, your lesson doesn't look as organized as it would if you're in a specific formation, right? So you can organize yourself into a nice formation that makes it look like you know what you're doing and everything's under control and you can see everything and keep an eye on everything as well. So that's also why we learn about choosing drill formations. Where can this be applied, you guys might ask, right? So we can basically apply this to drill lessons, but pretty much the skills are transferable to other areas of cadets and your personal life, right? So a lot of you guys, right, you will be instructors, but like having your class set up to a particular orientation is also critical. So you just have to know how to cater towards your class and how exactly you're going to teach your class, what position you're going to put your class in, or and so forth. And the drill formation is using that skill as well. So you're analyzing what the needs of the class will be for a particular lesson and putting it into action and how the class is going to be oriented. So maybe you might be sitting them differently at a table, seating them in a semicircle or other formats of how they can be arranged in order to improve the delivery of the lesson, right? So it's a part of a strong instructional technique that you guys will need. And considering that you guys are in level 3 and you will be being assessed on your ability to instruct and plan a lesson, right? So this is also important because sometimes you never know what kind of lesson that you're going to be teaching depending on the training schedule one day as future instructors. So you guys will probably need to be able to be on your toes and pick the right formations and techniques in order for you to apply to your lessons and teach effectively. Right. So teaching point 1, we're just going to be describing, Right, so teaching point 1, we're just going to be describing the different formations for drill instruction, right? So as I mentioned before, proper drill formation allows all the cadets to see the instructor clearly, and that's a crucial point, right? Because if, again, how many of you guys have sat in a classroom, maybe you've sat at the back where you're trying to like lean over somebody's shoulder to try and get like a little peek of what the teacher is doing on the board. Like if somebody can type in the chat if they've had that experience before. Yeah. Has anybody ever had that experience where you're trying to see something that your teacher's doing on the board maybe, and you can't really see it? Yes, because I'm short. Yeah. No. Okay, Phillips, you haven't had it. No worries. Sometimes, oh, you're too tall. You have both ends of the spectrum here, right? So, for what I just said, if anybody had any difficulty trying to see something that the instructor was doing, right? But then, like, you had to lean over somebody's shoulder or maybe try to reorient yourself to get a better look, right? Because maybe the instructor didn't or teacher didn't set themselves up right for everybody to see them. That's what I was asking. Right. So yeah, so we've all been in that situation before, right? And it's normally frustrating when that happens because you can't really see exactly what's going on. You're missing out. So your learning experience is pretty much compromised, right? And it's upset. So you won't get the most out of a lesson when you're not able to see exactly what's going on or what the teacher is trying to demonstrate, right? So that's why we have these drill formations, right? And the drill and wow, why does it keep doing that? Okay. So in the drill area, right, we have 3 recommended formations that we'd follow. So the first would be the single file. So where everybody is just in one single rank, right? And basically you use this formation when you have groups of 5 cadets or less, which can form up into one rank. So we already know the rules of forming up, right? We were taught that in level 1. So if you have 5 cadets, you're going to be forming up single rank. So if you're teaching a lesson to approximately 5 cadets and no more than 5, then you'll use the single file, right? You can fit everybody in one rank, and then you as the instructor will position yourself in front of the cadets, and everybody can see you just clearly, right, in a single file. So 5 groups of 5 cadets or less that can form up into a single rank, then we use the single file formation. Next, we have the semicircle formation, right? So where we have groups of 6, right, 6 to 9 cadets. So between 6 and 9 cadets, which we can form up in 2 ranks. So here, we already know that you have to have 10 cadets or more to form 3 ranks, right? Again, going back to how we form up, what we learned in level 1 when we formed up for the first time, right? If you have 10 cadets, then you'll be forming 3 ranks. But if you have 6 to 9, so under 10, but above 5, then you can form up in 2 ranks. But you can form up in a semicircle, right? So this semicircle is a more informal way of arranging your cadets. There's no specific drill command to arrange your cadets in a semicircle, so you'll just gather them up in some organized fashion into a semicircle, giving everybody those sight lines to see you. Normally, you'd probably stand in the center of the semicircle, giving everybody an equal opportunity to see what you're doing there. All right, so lastly, we have the hollow square. Anybody off the top of their head can take a stab at what the hollow square is?
It's basically there's one rank is on the right side of you, the other rank is on the right side of you, and the other one is right in front of you, and you have it in a hollow square and you stand right in front of it so they can all see it equally.
Perfect, right? Couldn't have said it better myself. Right, so the hollow square is exactly as how Flight Corporal Sharp described it. Right, it's a square with with one side missing, exactly. Right, so you use this when you have quite a large group that you're trying to teach. Okay, so use for groups of 10 or more cadets, which are formed up in 3 ranks. So once you have cadets that can form up in 3 ranks, and you have to teach a drill lesson, then you'll be using the hollow square formation. Okay, any questions so far? Feel free to unmute yourselves or put them in the chat if you have any. All right, so we're just going to run through a quick confirmation. That was a very brief teaching point, but let's see if it stuck. All right, so when do we want to use a single file formation? 1 to 5 cadets, great. All right, number 2, what formation should be used for a squad in 2 ranks?
6 to 9.
All right, so 6 to 9, but what specific formation? You got the numbers right.
And
Semicircle,
to a
hollow square, or semicircle, single file, or hollow square? I see semicircle. Yeah, so for a squad in 2 ranks, which is the 6 to 9, like Flight Corporal Sharp said, we'd use the semicircle formation, right? And how many ranks do we need for the squad to be in a hollow square, right?
3.
So we need 10 cadets or more, about 3 ranks. Yeah, perfect. All right, you guys got that. So going forward, right, if you ever have to teach a drill lesson in the future, right, just keep in mind of the numbers of how many people you have to teach and what formation you're going to use to be most effective in teaching your drill lesson. Next slide. Right. So now we're going to get into the specifics of forming the hollow square. So this part of the lesson, it's pretty much going to be more theoretical, because if it was an in-person lesson, I'd actually be walking you guys through this physically and commanding them, doing the movements, right? So you guys would be actually performing this movement. But since it's in a virtual format, I'll go through this process and try to illustrate it as much with the diagram that was presented. Okay, so we'll go through this step by step. Okay, so here, so we're going to form the hollow square, and the very first thing that we do is obviously identify the command, right? So we have 2 parts to this command, right? So I'm going to break off each command. Every drill command will follow some kind of structure to it. So here, if I separate this part here, so we have everything underneath underlined here in red, right? That's the executive part, or the warning part, the cautionary part of the command, the cautionary part of the command. So this gives you, the cadets, an idea of what movement they're going to perform, right? And the actual executive portion of the command is the left turn. So this one, you're identifying what movement you're going to perform and who's doing what in the movement. And this part is going to be telling you what the movement is. So here in this case, it's a turn, right, of some kind, right? So on the first command, the command will be, would you like to practice? We can do that as well, right? So, right, we could practice that as well. So I'll go through it, and if you want that chance to say it out loud, feel free to unmute yourself and go through it, right? So the first command would be, I won't shout it because obviously it's going to be a burden to the ears, but it'll be form hollow square, center rank right, rear rank left, turn. Okay, so what's happening here, right? So you're forming the hollow square. It's telling us to form the hollow square. Okay, center rank right. So if I go to the diagram here, right? So this is the center rank. So this is the front right here. So front. And then in blue, we'll do center. And then in green, we'll do rear, right? So like the command said, right? Center rank right, rear rank left turn. This is the very first step. So this rank is going to turn right, as the arrows are indicating here, right? That rank is going to turn right. This one's going this way. And this rank is going to turn left. So that's the first step. This rank stands fast. That means they don't move anywhere for now, right? They don't move. So this rank is going to go right. This rank is going to go left. Next step, on the command center rank left wheel, rear rank right wheel, quick march, right? You're telling each rank where to wheel, right? And they're going to be wheeling right off the bat once the quick march command is called. So in this case, the center rank is going to do a left wheel, right? Center rank is going to wheel this side. So they're going to, right when the march command call is called, they're going to wheel left. Okay, they're going to wheel to the left, right? Because they turned right, they're going to wheel to the left. So they're going to end up going this way, right? So it's going to be like pretty much they're 90 degrees going this way. So they're marching, 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 and they turn and end up in this position here. This rear rank is going to wheel to the right, right? So note this rear rank turns left. So in order to get to this position, they're going to have to wheel to the right, okay? And they end up in that position. But note, from that second step, they're still marching to a specific point, right? So now you're going to want to get the marking time at a specific spot. So that happens when the rear individuals of the center and rear rank are one pace in front of the front rank. Right, so the front rank never moves in this movement, but once there's a 1 pace distance here. Sorry, let me just get the pen. All right, so if you have, once you have a distance of 1 pace, excuse the handwriting, I'm drawing with the mouse, right? 1 pace from this side, so from the rear of this center and the rear of the rear rank as well, then you're gonna call the mark time command. So you're gonna have to observe. At this point, you're gonna be observing where the cadets are with respect to the front rank. Once you know that they've reached approximately 1 pace, because you're gonna have to eyeball it. When they reach 1 pace, then you'd call the mark time command. Right? And then lastly, once they're marking time, they're not moving forward or they're not moving backwards, right? So that's a time to fix their dressing, right? And then you'll call them a halt when you like that they're in the position that they want. And then next, you'll face them inwards towards the center of the square. So the center rank will turn left, and then the rear rank will turn right to face the center. So depending on which side you're on, you'll turn to face the center. So this side will turn right, and this side will turn left to face the center. Right, so the instructor will be here in that green circle. So they'll all turn in to face the instructor. Let's see the chat here. Okay. All right, any questions about that? I know it's hard to really conceptualize it, but I'm trying the best I can to kind of give you that image, right? So visualize yourself doing that movement, all right? Perfect. Alrighty. So once you're in the hollow square, if you want to get back into the nice 3 ranks that you have, then you're going to be doing what we call reforming 3 ranks. Okay, so on the command reform 3 ranks, the center rank, and then rear rank right, center rank left, rear rank right turn. Obviously, you'll follow the right movement. So basically, you're doing the opposite to get back in place, right? So you're going to be going backwards, essentially working your way back towards this position you started with. And after that, then you do the respective wheels. So remember, going back to when we actually formed the hollow square, right? So the center rank did a left wheel and the rear rank did a right wheel. Right now, when we're reforming 3s, the center rank is doing a right wheel, the rear rank is doing a left wheel. So you're working your way backwards to get back into the position that the ranks were in. So once they get back into their respective positions in the 3s, they mark time, call the mark time command again, and then they have that time to fix the dressing. And then on the command halt, then the squad will halt, and then everybody will face back to the front. They'll do the respective turns that they need to face back to the front. All right, so I see that it's confusing. How can I alleviate any confusion? Like Corporal Snow, if I can in any way, what can I do to help? You can go through the diagram again. So we'll go back. So to form the hollow square, right, center rank right, rear rank left turn, first part. So this rank turns right, this rank turns left. Okay, center, right, rear rank, left. Next, you want to get them outside of the 3 ranks and then put them into that hollow square. So this rank stands fast, they don't move. So in order for this center rank to get here, right, in order for that center rank to get to this point, so this to get here, you're gonna have to do a left wheel. So you'll march them, but they'll have to do a left wheel right when they start the march. So they'll left wheel out and get into this position. This rank here has already done a left turn. They're going to have to right wheel out to get here. After they reach a certain point where there's enough space between the rank that didn't move, so this first rank, once they've marched out, both these sides have marched out, then the instructor will call a mark time. I see the diagram. Yeah, so that's why I'm going to try and work through it. All right, so once the instructor has got through this part, the two ranks that's moved out of the flight, they've reached that one pace distance. They'll call the mark time, and then they'll call a halt when they're in the desired position, and then the hollow square has been formed. Then to go back into the reformed threes, you'll just do the opposite of what you did to get into the hollow square. So if you did a left turn or a right turn before, center rank will be doing a right turn, rear rank would be doing a left turn this time around, or a left turn this time around. So they did a right turn to get out into the hollow square, so they're going to be doing a left turn to get back. Right? So the mark time is called, right? So if it's left, right, left, you call the mark time on the right foot, and then you take a check pace, and then you bring your right foot in. This would be so much easier to explain in person, but it is called on the right foot. Right? It's much easier to demonstrate. So obviously, once we have the opportunity to come back in person, it'll be much easier to explain. All right, so we can go through this again. This is just a general primer, so just get used to it to get it inside your head. Right. So how must the squad be formed before forming a hollow square? That is true, but it'd just be much harder to synchronize. But we could always work something out. I'll think of different ways to make this as possible going forward. Right, so how must the squad be formed before forming a hollow square? Would they be in single rank, 3 ranks?
They need
How
to
must
be
they
in
be
3
formed?
ranks.
Perfect, they need to be in 3 ranks. Okay, and then when would we want to give the command to mark time? Right, remember that we have to maintain a specific distance from the rank that didn't move. So when do we want
It
to
has
call
to
that?
be 1 pace from the front rank. Then you have to call mark time on the right foot, and hopefully they're in step, and then they can
Perfect.
do mark time.
Yeah, fantastic. Right, so you give the command once they're 1 pace away from the rank that didn't move, the front rank. All right, and then what procedure is used to reform 3 ranks? Okay, what procedure do we use to reform 3 ranks? The procedure is in the name. You're reforming 3 ranks, right? And then the commands.
The command is squad reform 3s, and then you say center rank turn right, and then rear rank turn left, quick march, and then you say, oh, you're supposed to say wheel for both of them, and
Yep,
then they can reform, and then you say mark time,
yep,
and then first you say front rank stand fast, the 2 ranks have to mark time, and then you say front rank again, stand fast, halt, and then you do, and then they turn, and then that's it.
perfect. Right, so it's tough to really conceptualize here in this online format, and it's very understandable, but just get that, it's more introductory. If you want to review, right, feel free to look over as well on the drill manual that is available to check out the movements as well to follow through with it. But that's just a general introduction on how to carry out a hollow square. So obviously we know, right, these drill formations are very important to maintaining structure in our lessons and giving the cadets an opportunity to see the instructor very clearly so that they can properly learn the drill movements. Right, so again, I am Officer Cadet Amoa, and that was C309.04. Right, so thank you for being a good class. You guys are very nice, well participated. Also, we're also going to have a squadron debriefing as well today. So I'll put the code inside the chat for now, and then I will see you guys in that meeting. So just bear with me for a second.
Snow, if you're still confused, you can look up drill competitions for drill, and they're